So we just finished this communication workshop, and I asked to do this talk in case there was something I forgot or wanted to touch on. And sure enough, a few things came up. Uh, we talked about how the oneness and the manyness, and how we're all one. That's what, at least that's what Buddha found out, and that's what our ancestors all found out. Our Zen ancestors all found out, um, and it's something you may have experienced, or you probably will experience in Zen practice, the oneness of everything. And at the same time, we're all completely unique, completely unique. We have unique karmas, unique lives. Um, and those karmas, uh, some of it comes from uh, building up ideas and concepts. Um, White people are the best people. Uh, Education is essential to be a good person. Uh, uh, should always just be having fun. Should always be working. Whatever we've built up in terms of this complicated karma. Um, and then there's the uniqueness of our very life, our path, which is unique for all of us. So one thing I stressed in the workshop is every communication is unique. There's all kinds of techniques, and we went over a bunch of techniques. But when we're communicating with each other, it's always unique. So there isn't one, always be nice, always make strong boundaries. There isn't one rule that fits for communication. Um, but the theory is that it's possible to connect as one in communication. That's something that happens. And I think most of it experience it. I said sex, that is one way we experience that oneness, but also, dancing at a concert, uh, or going to a concert. I'm not a Taylor Swift fan, but I've been to some great concerts where everybody's just with the music, maybe thousands of people. What they had a seismic shift to the Taylor Swift concert because everybody stomped at the same moment. uh, that experience of oneness, or chanting during the service, or I think, or a great movie. Going to a movie. Oh, remember Star Wars? Those of you my age. uh, wow, that was great, and we all just were enraptured. So this koan I wanted to talk about is 16 bodhisattvas. Um, in the old days, there were 16 bodhisattvas. They all got into the bath together and realized the cause of water. They called out, "This subtle touch reveals the light that is everything. We have reached the place where the sons and daughters of the bodhisattvas live, of the Buddha. The sons and daughters of the Buddha live. We have reached the place where the sons and daughters of the Buddha live." And this is an old story. So the commentary said this probably was about the Ganges in India, very, very hot. And you know, the Ganges sacred, I've never been there, but very, very hot day. And so these 16 bodhisattvas got in the river together, which I've done in the Sierra backpacking, um, and kind of you're with your little group, but there are other groups. Super hot day in July, and the river is shallow enough that you can sit in it, and it's not too cold. It's just wow, that experience of just pure joy. Um, so that's really all to say. Um, just we can do this. We can connect with each other, and even though we're very, very different, and we have a lot of neuroses, we have a lot of stuff, even though we can have moments of true connection. And part of our practice is practicing as a sangha, as the community, as a group, um, to experience this. Um, the 16 bodhisattvas, by the way, are, it said in Wikipedia, a portion of diamond realms. This is really Tibetan Buddhism, um, of the diamond realm mandala associated with the cardinal directions, the metaphysical space inhabited by the eight Tathagatas, so the five Tathagatas. So this is the five families, which I'm going to talk about next for the Sangha Sutra. The five families each have one of the Tathagatas rules, each family, and the directions are also important in how the five families work. So this is the five families is everything. So all the colors, the five families are the primary colors in white, which is all the colors, and all together is black. So everything is covered by the five families. Um, and this is the realm, sons and daughters of the Buddhas. Who's that? That's you, me. Uh, and I don't know how you think of Buddha. You might not think, I don't really care to be a son or daughter of Buddha, but the oneness, the God, what, you know, whatever spirit, whatever you say for that, um, we are sons and daughters. And just like all kids, we go off in our own ways, and yet still we have that oneness. Um, so I've been talking about the Sangha Sutra, which just came out, which is kind of the Sweetwater Zen Center grievance procedure, but it's way more than that. It is really a structure for how to live together in harmony, which doesn't mean nicey nice. Yuck, please spare me. It means being authentic and truthful. And the show you mentioned, oh, now I'm talking about counsel. I'm not supposed to. Who breaks all the rules is me. uh, but this right speech, what's true, what is it again?
Is it true? Is it necessary? Is it kind? And is it timely?
Timely, yeah. So this authentic communication does not mean unfiltered communication. Please underline that. Keep it to yourself. Those evil thoughts, just let them go. So is it timely? Is it true? And sometimes we have to say, um, be set boundaries and be strict, uh, but to be kind. Just started thinking about the Dalai Lama, who actually he's quite fierce in his temple, where he's the head of his temple, but he's so sweet and just connects with everyone. I went to this huge thing with him. It was in a gym, like the Lakers gym or something. It was huge, thousands of people. Everyone I talked to said, "Oh, he looked at me. I saw him look at me." Everybody had that experience. I did. He was actually looking at me. But just amazing ability to connect with everyone in that huge room. Uh, and my neighbor told me, I saw Dalai Lama in the Whole Foods uh, somewhere up north. And he said, really, I did. And I said, I completely believe you, because he would do that. He'd go, I want to see what's in this grocery store. There's a story too about Suzuki Roshi. Um, had an attendant, and they were driving back from Tasahar to San Francisco and stopped at a little food place, and he was vegan, Suzuki Roshi, and the attendant got a hamburger and he got whatever, a salad or something, and he looked at the hamburger and said, I want that, and ate the hamburger, and the attendant got the salad. That's a story I heard. I love that story. I'll have that hamburger. This may be breaking a boundary. So that's the other thing I wanted to talk about, which has just come up. Um, my dear friend Daegu, Michael O'Keefe, just published in Tricycle an article about his relationship with Bernie, who is my teacher. Um, and Michael is kind of a movie star. And he got a job on Roseanne. He was Roseanne's sister's boyfriend for a season or a couple seasons. He played the dumb blonde, was what he said. His role was a dumb blonde, but he made a lot of money. Uh, and Bernie just kept asking him for money for his project in Yonkers, which was amazing housing for people without housing, school for inner city kids, a hospice for people with AIDS. That was before the cure. Um, just all of these amazing programs. And Bernie did a lot of fundraising with Michael, and finally asked him for $50,000, which Michael was totally into that project and happily gave him that. And then Bernie decided to do something else. He, which was Bernie's style. So he sold everything there. And I know Bernie's reasoning was it was too much for him to do now. But actually, I was there not recently, but maybe 10 years ago, probably. And the school is gone, that the housing is gone. A lot of that is just gone. Um, the healthcare is still there, and the bakery is really thriving. It's amazing. They take anybody who can lift, I think, 50 pounds. Um, no background check. So they get a lot of folks out of prison. And then they do training and they have this amazing, so it's an amazing project. But anyway, Michael felt I gave this money for this project and you're leaving it now, so I want my money back. And Bernie, I can't remember the story. Anyway, it's in Tricycle, you can read it. But Bernie pointed to what he was doing now and he said, well, your money's here. I don't have it. I don't have it. And that happened with a bunch of people. People gave like, Bernie, it's a short loan. It's going to be for a year. So they gave their retirement money on these loans, and Bernie took a long time to pay it back. So Bernie had problems with money, and Michael, and I skimmed it, but you can read it. But Michael felt this was unethical. It was unethical use of his money, and it's standard fundraising. If you fundraise for something, like our fundraising circle does such a good job, but I always tell the steward and the board, when we have a project, then we have to spend that money for that project. So this year we raised for staff and got more than we actually had hoped to get. And all that money has to go for staff, which is no problem because the staff is pretty expensive. But, not that they get great salaries. It's just expensive for us. Uh, but uh, yeah, so anyway, the point is this is just happening. But in the Sangha Sutra too, there's talk about Maizumi Roshi's difficulty. He was alcoholic, and he would rage. He would get drunk and rage, and be very inappropriate. And he was um, a lonely man, and so he had um, actually several inappropriate relationships. Relationship with students, which the Sangha Sutra goes into, is that's a power abuse, um, for teachers to have relationship with students, and so that's our story. That's our ancestor. That's the story of the White Plum Sangha, um, and I've got my problems too. We all do. Every abbot has um, stuff, neuroses, greed, anger, ignorance. So this moment of oneness that happens individually and also can happen as a group, like the 16 bodhisattvas, is kind of fleeting. It happens. And then we're still dealing with our greed, anger, ignorance. So the Sangha Sutra champions praises the Sangha as an enlightened place. To be in the Sangha is an enlightened place. Enlightened means um, without greed, anger, ignorance, without our egos getting messed up in it all the time. But of course they do. So that's why we have these guidelines. That's why we have the precepts. Like I always say, red flag. That's how I practice. Red flag. No, Seisen, step back. uh, and I'm thinking, we get caught up in whatever it is, and it just feels right. I had trouble with sex too, fortunately, before I became a teacher. Um, but it just feels like this is what God wants. It just feels so right. Uh, those hormones and that. So to have that little precept going, well, the precepts say it isn't right. That little red flag, and also the Sangha Sutra giving us and giving us information about transference, which I didn't talk about yesterday. I talked a little bit about projection. Projection is when I project my stuff on you. So if I'm lonely, I think you're lonely. And I think, wow, we could fix that. Uh, if I'm afraid, I think you're afraid. Um, and I find myself doing that often in Doksan, I'll be telling someone, you should watch out for this and this and this. And afterwards, I think, I was just talking to myself. It was me I was talking about. It's so weird how that works. So kind of looking at projection and when relationships are difficult, well, what's the projection here? Am I projecting my uh, desire for everything to be neat and tidy on you? You may not have that. So projection and then transference, counter transference. It says transference is when I see someone else in you, which one time I there was this woman who I was working with, and I just didn't like her. And no reason. And it was very upsetting for me. And Jikio said, okay, think about her. I'm Jikio Roshi. Think about her and then close your eyes. Who comes up? And this is a great technique when you're having trouble and you think there might be transference going on. My mom's face was just bam right there. And I hadn't for a moment thought this was about my mom. And you don't know, but Werner Erhard said, every man is your father, every woman is your mother. And there's some truth to that. That's how we learned out about how mothers and fathers are, and we'll project that on each other, and just to be aware and try to see each other truly. So when I say be genuine yourself, I'll also see the other person genuinely, who they really are. Um, and then countertransference is when the other person plays along. So if I see you as my mom and then you start scolding me for not doing the dishes, we really got ourselves in a transference, countertransference. And of course, uh, it happens sexually, and in what my Zumi Roshi, Bernie too. Many of the white plum teachers, women included, had difficulty with sexual relations with their students. Um, I remember that again. Jikio has been such a help in all of this. But the first time I taught this introductory class, and there was one. I was a pretty young woman, and there's a young man who just loved me. And he was very attractive. I wasn't particularly attractive to attractive men. I was just, this is great. But I did call Jikio about it, and she said, step back, Seisen, stop what you're doing. This is going to keep on happening because the power differential, which is also addressed in the Sangha Sutra, is so attractive and so easy to for the student to transfer romantic partner onto a teacher. And then countertransference is when uh, the teacher goes along with it. And this is what I wanted to tell you about. I hate talking about transference, countertransference, but it's caused much harm in our lineage in many different ways. But Rinzai talked about it in the Rinzai Roku, which is China, what, before Dogen, long 600, I think 600 uh, Rinzai. He says it's like the teacher has a tray, a lacquer tray that's just been painted. So it's all wet and sticky. Never mind, stop. The student has a lacquer tray that's all wet and sticky. And uh, the teacher sees it and jumps, and so that's the student presenting with their stuff. The teacher sees it and jumps on it in joy and gets stuck in the lacquer. Transference, countertransference. right there. I love that. I'll have to talk about that sometime. In the Rinzai Roku, he talks a lot about teacher-student relationship. But anyway, because it came up with Michael, I thought I'd talk a little bit about the shadow of our lineage and how these projection and transference, countertransference are part of the ways that we look at, uh, the greed, anger, ignorance that uh, we're all working with. So that's why we have trouble connecting, because that stuff gets in the way. And that's also why it's great to do zazen together. The best thing to do is do zazen together. You really do experience that oneness sitting together, and you don't get to act out. Like the long sleeves are so we don't fight. That's why monks have long sleeves, because it's really hard. uh, but just sitting together is a wonderful way to just experience the oneness of all things together. And then working together, doing service together is a wonderful way to work on appropriate relations. I mean, really, truly loving relations. Truly loving relations means we want to take care of you. So if somebody says, I want my money back, you go, okay, here you go. Maybe, or maybe you don't. But to approach it, well, just like that right speech, with kindness, appropriateness, timeliness in our interactions. So that's all I have to say about the Sangha Sutra and communication. And then I'll do one more workshop. I thought I might do a workshop talking about the shadow side, talking about the shadow, but then I ended up talking about it now. But maybe do one more, but I'll do one on the five families, which is the basis of our circle structure. So any questions, answers, comments?